He strode confidently to the podium, clutching the USB I'd once held, and plugged it straight into the projector for the million-dollar pitch. The first slide appeared. People chuckled. The second slide. Silence. The third slide. Wasn't corporate. Wasn't mine. It was what I'd planted for him. Someone in the room gasped. The CEO gripped the table. And me, I sat in the back row, smiling. My name is Tessa Blake, and I've been bleeding data analytics for Medix data for 11 years. 11 years of building frameworks from scratch. 11 years of salvaging doomed projects. 11 years of watching fresh-faced MBAs take credit for systems I architected while pulling all-nighters in server rooms that smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. I thought I'd seen everything. Then Caleb Winslow walked through our glass doors. 29 years old, Armani suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage, and a smile that screamed, "I've never worked a real day in my life." Our CEO, Gregory Winslow, introduced his son as the new Director of Product Innovation at our Monday morning all-hands. The nepotism was so thick you could cut it with a spreadsheet. "We need fresh perspectives," Gregory announced, his hand on Caleb's shoulder like he was presenting a trophy. "Someone who can modernize our approach, eliminate legacy inefficiencies." Legacy. That word hung in the air like a threat. I watched Caleb's eyes sweep across the conference room, cataloging faces like items at an estate sale, when his gaze landed on me, 38, graying at the temples. Coffee stain on my sleeve from my 4:30 a.m. debugging session. I saw the calculation happen. Old inventory. Needs clearing out. "I'm excited to work with all of you," Caleb said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Though I'll be honest, some of our processes need serious updating. We can't compete in today's market with yesterday's thinking." Yesterday's thinking, my yesterday's thinking, had saved this company from bankruptcy twice. My legacy code still powered 80% of our core infrastructure. But sure, let the trust fund baby tell us about innovation. The first department meeting under Caleb's reign felt like a funeral where nobody had acknowledged the corpse yet. He strutted in 15 minutes late, designer coffee in hand, and immediately started throwing around buzzwords like agile transformation and digital disruption. "I've reviewed our current analytics pipeline," he announced, which was fascinating since he'd been here exactly 3 days. "It's functional, but we need to think bigger, sexier, more scalable." Janet from QA, hired the same year as me, raised her hand. "The current system processes 2 million transactions daily with 99.9% accuracy. What specific improvements?" "See, that's the problem," Caleb interrupted, pointing at her like she'd proven his point. "You're thinking incrementally. Where's the moonshot? Where's the disruption?" I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. Disruption. The boy who'd probably never debugged a line of code in his life wanted disruption. After the meeting, I found Janet crying in the bathroom. "He called me a legacy blocker in front of everyone," she whispered. "Said I was married to outdated paradigms." Legacy blocker, like we were obsolete hardware waiting for decommission. Over the next weeks, Caleb's modernization campaign intensified. He scheduled innovation sessions, where he'd lecture us about thinking outside the box, while demonstrating he'd never seen the inside of one. He hired consultants who charged $1,000 an hour to tell us our databases needed reimagining. He implemented efficiency protocols that somehow made everything take twice as long. But the real insult came when he started asking to borrow our work, just to reference, just to get inspired. "Tessa," he'd say, leaning against my cubicle wall like we were old friends, "mind sharing that customer segmentation analysis you did last quarter? I want to understand your vintage approach." Vintage, like I was a dusty wine bottle in his father's cellar. I shared the files. What choice did I have? He was the CEO's son, the golden boy who was going to drag us kicking and screaming into the future, even if that future looked suspiciously like the past with his name stamped on it. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I'd been working on a predictive model for our European expansion for 4 months nights, weekends, holidays. It was my masterpiece, a beautiful algorithm that could forecast market penetration with eerie accuracy. Caleb asked to review it for educational purposes. A week later, I saw my work presented in his slide deck for the board meeting. My code, my analysis, my insights. With one small change, every instance of my name had been replaced with his. When I confronted him, he didn't even pretend to be embarrassed. "It's all about the company. Tessa," he said, adjusting his Rolex. "Who cares whose name is on it? The results are what matter. Besides," he smiled that prep school smile, "I'm the face of innovation here. It makes sense for me to present our best work." Our best work. My work had become our work. Soon it would be his work. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot until security did their rounds at 11:45 p.m. I wasn't crying. I was too angry for tears. 11 years of loyalty. And this was my reward, watching a nepotism case study steal my future while calling me obsolete. But as I finally drove home, something shifted. The anger crystallized into something harder, sharper. He wanted my work fine. I'd give him exactly what he deserved. The international partnership presentation was Caleb's chance to prove himself, his first solo flight without daddy's training wheels. 4 pharmaceutical companies from France and Japan, potentially worth $30 million in contracts, the kind of deal that could make or break a career. Naturally, he needed help. "Tessa," he cornered me by the coffee machine on a Tuesday morning, his cologne overwhelming the burnt Arabica. "I could use your expertise on something." I stirred my coffee slowly, counting the swirls. 1, 2, 3. "Oh, the international pitch next month. I want to really wow them with our analytics capabilities. Show them we're not just another American tech company. You know, we're global players." Global players. He'd been here 6 weeks. "I was thinking," he continued, not waiting for my response, "you could share that market penetration framework you've been working on. The one you presented internally last quarter. I want to study your methodology." Study, sure. Like he'd studied my customer segmentation analysis before it mysteriously appeared in his innovative approaches to data mining presentation to the board. "That framework took 4 months to develop," I said carefully. "It's based on proprietary algorithms I've been refining since—" Right, legacy work." He waved his hand dismissively. "Look, I'm not asking you to give it to me, just share access. For reference. Team collaboration. You know, team collaboration, where I did the work and he took the credit." I smiled. It probably looked genuine. I'd perfected it over 11 years of corporate politics. "Of course, I'll send you the files this afternoon." His face lit up like a kid who'd been promised ice cream. "Fantastic, see, Tessa. This is how we modernize. Old wisdom meets new vision." Old wisdom. I was 38, not 80. That night, I stayed late. Nothing unusual there. The office emptied by 6:30 p.m., leaving me alone with the hum of servers and my simmering rage. I pulled up the framework, my baby. 4 months of elegant code and breakthrough insights. Then I made a copy. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Caleb prepare for the presentation. His preparation consisted mainly of forwarding my work to his assistant with instructions to make it prettier, and scheduling meetings where he'd practice reading my slides aloud. "The key insight here," I heard him rehearsing in conference room B, "is that market penetration in the EU follows a predictable pattern based on regulatory windows." My insight, word for word from my executive summary. 3 days before the presentation, he made his move. He scheduled a sync-up meeting. Just the 2 of us in his corner office, the one with the view of the city, the one that should have been mine if merit mattered more than DNA. "I've been thinking," he said, leaning back in his leather chair, "about the presentation authorship. Here it comes. Given that I'll be presenting, and this is really a collaborative effort, it makes sense to list me as the primary author. You'll get credit too, of course, with contributions from the analytics team." The analytics team, not even my name, just absorbed into the anonymous mass of legacy employees. "I see," I said. "You do understand, right? It's about perception. The clients need to see innovation, fresh thinking, no offense, but," he gestured vaguely at me, at my sensible blazer and practical flats, at my 11 years of grinding excellence. You're not exactly the face of transformation. No offense, the corporate equivalent of, I'm about to insult you, but you can't get mad about it. I understand completely, I said, and I did. I understood that he was a parasite in an Armani suit. I understood that he would bleed this company dry of institutional knowledge while calling it progress. I understood that he'd already copied my entire framework onto his personal drive, renaming files to erase my fingerprints. Great. He clapped his hands together. I knew you'd be a team player. Oh, and Tessa, I'll need the final version by Thursday night. The presentation's Friday afternoon, but I want time to familiarize myself with the material. Familiarize, like he hadn't been presenting my work as his own for the past 6 weeks. Thursday night, I worked until 11:15 p.m., polishing every slide, every data point, every visualization. The framework was perfect, my magnum opus disguised as his debut. I saved the final version, uploaded it to the shared drive, and sent him an email. Final presentation attached. Good luck tomorrow. Then I made one small adjustment to my local copy, just a tiny modification to the backup I'd been maintaining. Nothing major, just enough. I labeled it Final Use This One, PPTX, and saved it to a USB drive, the same naming convention he always used when he couldn't keep track of versions, the same panic save format I'd seen on his desktop a dozen times. Friday morning, I arrived early, 7:20 a.m., coffee in hand, smile in place. Caleb burst in at 9:45 a.m., sweating despite the November chill. Have you seen my USB? He demanded, ransacking his desk. The silver one, I had it right here. Maybe you left it in the conference room, I suggested helpfully. From yesterday's run-through. He sprinted out. I counted to 30, then walked casually to his office. His computer was unlocked, of course it was. Password security was probably too legacy for him. I inserted my USB, dragged the file to his desktop, removed the drive. The whole thing took 45 seconds. When he returned, empty-handed and frantic, I was back at my desk, typing peacefully. Tessa, he practically shouted, I need you to resend the presentation. The meeting's in an hour. Check your desktop, I called back. You probably downloaded it yesterday. I heard the relief in his voice. Found it. Final Use This One. Thank God. Thank God indeed. 1 hour later, he strutted into the executive conference room, USB in hand, ready to claim my 4 months of work as his own breakthrough. The investors were already seated, stern faces above expensive suits, tablets ready to take notes on the boy wonder's innovation. He inserted the USB with a flourish, clicked to the first slide, and I sat in the back row, hands folded, waiting for the show to begin. The beauty of revenge is in the details. Every spreadsheet has metadata. Every slide has a history. Every stolen idea leaves breadcrumbs. I'd spent 2 weeks crafting the perfect trap, and Caleb was about to walk right into it. The modified presentation I'd left on his desktop looked identical to the original at first glance. Same template, same color scheme, same opening slide with Medix Data's logo spinning professionally into place. I'd even kept the first few slides intact, knowing he'd likely review those in his panic. But starting with slide 4, things got interesting. I'd replaced the market penetration data with charts showing the correlation between executive nepotism and company failure rates. The numbers were real, pulled from Harvard Business Review, but decidedly not what our investors expected to see. Slide 7 featured a detailed analysis of legacy employee value retention, complete with a case study of companies that had failed after pushing out experienced staff in favor of innovation consultants. I'd used Comic Sans for the headers, subtle. The pièce de résistance was slide 12, a full-screen animation of dancing spreadsheets set to what I imagined would be deeply inappropriate music in a boardroom setting, followed by text that read, "This analysis created by Tessa Blake, presented without permission by Caleb Winslow, all timestamp data available upon request." But my favorite touch was smaller, meaner. I'd embedded screenshots throughout emails where Caleb asked to borrow my work, file properties showing creation dates with my username, even security camera stills of me working late while building the framework. Digital breadcrumbs forming a trail straight back to the truth. 2 nights before, I'd also taken out a little insurance policy. I'd compiled a comprehensive document showing the complete development history of the framework, every version, every timestamp, every login record. I'd sent it to our general counsel with a simple note, "For your records, in case questions arise about intellectual property ownership." I'd also blind copied 2 of our biggest shareholders, the ones who actually cared about corporate governance. Now, sitting in that back row, I felt like a conductor waiting for the orchestra to begin. Caleb stood at the podium, radiating unearned confidence. Gregory Winslow sat in the front row, beaming at his progeny. The investors, 2 from Lyon, 2 from Tokyo, maintained poker faces above their $1,000 ties. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caleb began, his voice carrying that prep school polish, "Medix Data stands at the precipice of transformation. What I'm about to show you isn't just data analytics, it's the future of pharmaceutical intelligence." My words, my opening, stolen verbatim from my original draft. He clicked to the first slide. Professional, clean, everything in order. Second slide still safe, market overview, industry trends. He relaxed visibly, finding his rhythm. Third slide, the last unmodified one. He was practically glowing now, gesturing confidently at projections he didn't understand. Then came slide 4. The bar chart materialized slowly, building suspense. Correlation between nepotistic hiring and stock devaluation, a 5-year analysis. Caleb's hand froze on the clicker. Someone coughed. Gregory shifted in his seat. This isn't... Caleb clicked frantically. "Technical difficulties. Let me just..." Slide 5 appeared, Case Study WeWork, Theranos, and the Danger of Unqualified Leadership. The French investor on the left, Madame Dubois, I'd learned, raised an eyebrow. Her colleague leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "This is wrong," Caleb's voice cracked. "Someone's tampered with..." Click. Slide 6. A pie chart showing time spent on actual work versus time spent taking credit for others' work, with Caleb's calendar screenshots as evidence. Gregory stood. "Perhaps we should take a brief..." "No," Madame Dubois said quietly. "Continue." Caleb clicked again. Desperate now. Slide 7 bloomed across the screen in magnificent Comic Sans. Why Legacy Employees Matter, a presentation stolen from Tessa Blake. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "I can explain," Caleb stammered. "This is obviously..." Click. The dancing spreadsheets began their performance. The music I'd chosen, yakety sax, filled the conference room with manic saxophone. Files tangoed across the screen while pivot tables did the Charleston. Mr. Takashi from the Tokyo team actually laughed a short, sharp bark of disbelief. The music stopped. The final message appeared. Stark black text on white. This analysis created by Tessa Blake, presented without permission by Caleb Winslow, all timestamp data available upon request. The silence that followed was beautiful, not peaceful violent, the kind of silence that precedes executions. "Is this true?" Madame Dubois directed her question not to Caleb but to Gregory. "Your Director of Innovation is presenting stolen work." "There's been a misunderstanding," Gregory began. "The only misunderstanding," Mr. Takashi interrupted, holding up his tablet, "is why we received documentation 3 days ago showing the complete development history of this framework, attributed to a Ms. Blake, while your son claims authorship. My insurance policy, right on schedule." Caleb's face cycled through the entire spectrum of panic. "She set me up. She gave me the wrong file." "So you admit you took her file?" Madame Dubois's voice could have frozen hellfire, without attribution. I stood up in the back row, not dramatically, just a simple standing motion, like I was stretching my legs. Every head turned. "I have the correct presentation on my laptop," I said calmly. If you'd still like to see the actual market penetration framework, though I understand if you'd prefer to reschedule with appropriate presenters. Gregory's face had achieved a shade of purple I'd previously thought impossible in nature. Caleb looked like he might vomit on his Italian shoes. That would be appreciated, Ms. Blake, Mr. Takashi said. Perhaps you could present your own work. She sabotaged me. Caleb's voice hit registers typically reserved for soprano opera. This is corporate sabotage. No, I said, pulling out my laptop with practiced calm. Corporate sabotage is stealing 4 months of someone's work and calling it innovation. This is just quality control. I walked to the front of the room, past Caleb's trembling form, past Gregory's apoplectic face, and plugged in my laptop. The real presentation opened my actual framework, elegant and precise. Shall we start from the beginning? I asked the investors. I promise the only dancing in this version is in the data modeling. Madame Dubois smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Please do. Ms. Blake, we're very interested in hearing from the actual innovator. Behind me, I heard Caleb flee the room, his shoes squeaking against the marble floor in his haste. Gregory followed, barking something about damage control. I clicked to the real first slide, and began, Ladies and gentlemen, Medix Data stands at the precipice of transformation. My words, my work, my moment. And somewhere in the building, Caleb Winslow was learning that legacy code isn't the only thing that can come back to bite you. The presentation room transformed. What had been a corporate execution chamber moments before became my stage, and I owned every inch of it. The investors leaned forward, tablets ready, eyes sharp with renewed interest. This wasn't just about data anymore. This was about trust, competence, and whether Medix Data deserved $30 million of their money. The European pharmaceutical market, I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins, isn't just about numbers. It's about understanding regulatory windows, cultural nuances, and timing patterns that most American companies miss. Click, my real first slide appeared clean, professional, with data visualizations that actually meant something. What I've developed over the past 4 months is a predictive framework that doesn't just analyze current market conditions, it anticipates regulatory shifts before they happen. Madame Dubois made a note. Mr. Takashi nodded slightly. His colleague, who'd remained silent until now, finally spoke. How accurate are these predictions? 94% accuracy over the past 18 months of backtesting, I replied, clicking to the validation slide. Every prediction documented, every outcome tracked. The room's energy shifted. These weren't venture capitalists looking to be dazzled by buzzwords. They were serious investors who recognized real innovation when they saw it, and they were seeing it now, presented by someone who actually understood it. 20 minutes in, I reached the section Caleb had been most eager to steal the competitive analysis. Notice how our competitors consistently miss these entry windows by an average of 3 to 4 months. That's $40 million in potential revenue, lost to poor timing. And Medix Data's current market entry, the fourth investors, Sato from Tokyo spoke for the first time. I smiled. With this framework, we can hit every window within a 2-week margin. That's the difference between market leadership and playing catch-up. The presentation flowed like water now. Every question they asked, I had an answer backed by data I'd personally validated. Every concern they raised, I addressed with insights born from 11 years of watching this industry evolve. 45 minutes later, I reached my final slide. The question isn't whether Medix Data can compete globally. The question is whether we're ready to stop talking about innovation and actually deliver it. Silence. But this time, it was the good kind, the silence of people recalculating their assumptions. Madame Dubois closed her tablet. Ms. Blake, who else has seen this framework? Internally. The development team who helped implement the technical infrastructure. Externally. You're the first. And Mr. Winslow, the younger one, he had access to all of this. I chose my words carefully. He requested access for educational purposes, I complied with my director's request. Mr. Takashi made a sound that might have been a laugh. Educational indeed. The door burst open. Gregory Winslow strode in, his face now a more controlled shade of red. Caleb nowhere in sight. Gentlemen, ladies, I apologize for the confusion. Perhaps we could— Mr. Winslow, Madame Dubois cut him off with surgical precision. We've just seen an exceptional presentation from Ms. Blake, the actual creator of this framework. We understand— Gregory's jaw worked silently for a moment. There may have been some miscommunication about attribution. Miscommunication. Ms. Sato tested the word like wine. Is that what we're calling intellectual property theft now? My son is young, ambitious. Your son, Mr. Takashi interrupted, just tried to present stolen work to secure a $30 million partnership. In Japan, we have a word for that. Several, actually. None of them are flattering. I began packing up my laptop, keeping my movements unhurried. The show was over. Now came the aftermath. Ms. Blake, Madame Dubois called out. A moment, please. I paused at the door. Gregory looked like he wanted to object but couldn't find the grounds. This framework you developed it entirely. The concept, architecture, and implementation are mine. The development team helped with infrastructure, but the analytical model itself, yes, that's my work. She exchanged glances with her colleagues. We'll need to discuss this internally, but I think it's safe to say we're impressed. With the framework, she paused meaningfully, and with its actual creator, I nodded. I'll be at my desk if you need any clarification on the technical specifications. One more thing, Mr. Takashi added. The dancing spreadsheets, your addition. For the first time that day, I allowed myself a real smile. Sometimes you have to speak a language people understand. Caleb seemed fond of flash over substance. I thought I'd give him both. Ms. Sato actually grinned. Yakety sax? Inspired choice. I left the conference room with my head high and my laptop tucked under my arm. Behind me, I could hear Gregory beginning damage control, his voice strained with forced professionalism. But I knew we all knew that some things couldn't be controlled. In the elevator, my phone buzzed, an email from legal. Please report to HR immediately regarding the events of this morning's presentation. Then another, from an address I didn't recognize. Ms. Blake, I represent NextCore Analytics. We've been following your work with interest. Would you be available for a confidential discussion this week? The elevator dinged. Third floor, my floor. I stepped out into familiar territory, but everything looked different now. Janet stood by the coffee machine, eyes wide. Tessa, what happened? Caleb came running through here like his hair was on fire, and now security's in his office. He gave the wrong presentation, I said simply. Happens to the best of us. But I heard, did you really— I gave him exactly what he asked for. Janet, access to my work. He chose what to do with it. The rest of the floor was buzzing. Heads prairie-dogged over cubicle walls. 11 years I'd worked here, invisible, undervalued, watching my ideas walk out the door with someone else's name on them. Not anymore. My desk phone was ringing when I reached it. The caller ID showed Gregory's extension. I let it ring. 4 times. 5. Then picked up on the 6th. Tessa, Gregory's voice was carefully modulated. We need to discuss this morning's incident. Of course, I said, pulling up my email to read NextCore's message more carefully. I'll be in HR as requested. Though you might want to check with legal first, I believe they have some documentation you should review. Documentation. Date stamp development logs, email chains, security footage, legacy systems creating paper trails, terribly outdated, but surprisingly useful. The silence on the other end was deafening. I'll be in HR in 10 minutes, I continued. After I back up my personal files, company policy, of course. I hung up before he could respond. Around me, the buzz of gossip grew louder. Someone had pulled up the security footage of Caleb's sprint from the building. Someone else was forwarding emails, sharing timestamps. piecing together months of theft that had been happening in plain sight. The dancing spreadsheets had done their job, but the real dance, that was just beginning. The HR conference room smelled like fear and legal liability. Gregory sat at the head of the table, flanked by our head of HR, Patricia Morse, and someone I didn't recognize outside counsel. Judging by the Armani suit that actually fit properly, Caleb hunched in the corner like a scolded child. His earlier bravado evaporated. "Ms. Blake," Patricia began, her voice professionally neutral, "we need to understand what happened this morning." I placed my laptop bag carefully on the table and sat down. I provided Mr. Winslow with the materials he requested. He presented them to our potential partners. "You sabotaged me," Caleb erupted, pointing an accusatory finger. "You deliberately gave me the wrong file." "Did I?" I turned to Patricia. "Has anyone checked which file Caleb actually presented? Because I have the email trail showing I sent him the correct presentation Thursday night at 11:23 p.m. The outside counsel, his nameplate read. James Morrison slid a tablet across to Gregory. "We've reviewed the metadata. The file Mr. Winslow presented was created Sunday evening and saved to his desktop Friday morning at 9:52 a.m. "That's impossible," Caleb stammered. "I got it Thursday." "From the shared drive," Morrison continued, "where Ms. Blake uploaded the correct version. The question is, how did a different file end up on your desktop?" I maintained perfect composure. Perhaps Caleb downloaded the wrong version. File management can be tricky when you're not familiar with the content. Gregory's face darkened. "Don't play games. Tessa, you clearly—" "What I clearly did," I interrupted, surprising everyone including myself, "was develop a framework over 4 months that could secure a $30 million partnership. What Caleb clearly did was attempt to present it as his own work." "That's not," Caleb started. "Would you like me to show the emails?" I pulled out my phone. October 15th. "Hey Tessa, can you send me that analysis for reference?" October 22nd. "Need to understand your vintage approach." November 3rd. "Mind if I borrow your framework for educational purposes?" Patricia held up a hand. "We've seen the emails, and the security footage, and the development logs." "Then you've also seen," Morrison added, looking directly at Gregory, "that Ms. Blake documented everything with legal as a precautionary measure. She protected both herself and the company's intellectual property. By humiliating us in front of investors," Gregory slammed his hand on the table. "By preventing your son from committing fraud," Morrison corrected coldly. "The investors were going to discover the theft eventually. Ms. Blake's method was unorthodox, but it exposed the issue before contracts were signed." "She should have come to us," Patricia suggested weakly. I laughed, actually laughed. "Come to whom?" "To Gregory about his son. To HR, who reports to Gregory." "I did go to legal. I documented everything. I protected the company's interests when no one else would." "You're fired," Gregory snarled. "Gross misconduct. Sabotage. Clear out your desk." Morrison cleared his throat. "Actually, Mr. Winslow, I'd strongly advise against that course of action." "She admitted to sabotaging the presentation." "She admitted to uploading files to a computer," Morrison corrected. "Her own work, I might add. Meanwhile, your son admitted, on record, in front of international investors, to taking her files without attribution. That's intellectual property theft. If Ms. Blake is terminated now, it would appear retaliatory." "Appear." I leaned forward. "It would be retaliatory. And I'm sure Madame Dubois and Mr. Takashi would be fascinated to learn that Medix Data fired the person who actually created the framework they're interested in." Patricia shifted uncomfortably. "The investors have requested a follow-up meeting, specifically with Ms. Blake." Gregory's knuckles went white. "This is extortion." "No," I said quietly. "Extortion was your son holding my career hostage while stealing my work. This is consequence." Caleb chose that moment to speak up. "I made a mistake. Okay, I thought if I could land this deal, I could prove myself." "By proving yourself to be a thief," Morrison's tone could have stripped paint. Mr. Winslow, are you aware that presenting falsified credentials to international partners could violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act? The color drained from Caleb's face. Even Gregory went still. We need to control this narrative, Patricia said quickly. The investors have already contacted 3 board members, Morrison interrupted, checking his phone. They're requesting an emergency meeting to discuss governance concerns. I stood up. Am I fired or not because I have work to do? My actual work, not whatever fiction Caleb's been peddling. Gregory looked like he'd swallowed glass. You're not fired, yet. But don't think. I'll need that in writing, I interrupted. The not fired part. Email is fine. This isn't over, Gregory warned. No, I agreed, gathering my things. It's just beginning. Caleb wanted to eliminate legacy inefficiencies. Right, well, congratulations. You've identified one. It's sitting in your chair. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Caleb. Next time you steal someone's work, maybe check for Easter eggs first. I hid 17 more throughout that presentation. The dancing spreadsheets were just the opening act. His face went green. 78. Or maybe 18. I lost count. I smiled sweetly. Guess you'll have to review all your borrowed materials to be sure. Have fun with that. I left them scrambling for laptops, desperate to find what other surprises I might have planted. The truth was, there were no other Easter eggs, but they'd spend days, maybe weeks, combing through everything Caleb had touched, paranoid about presenting anything. The elevators were full of whispers when I reached them. Word traveled fast in a building with glass walls. By the time I reached my desk, Janet was waiting with a cup of coffee and a grin. Did you really make spreadsheets dance to yakety sax? Allegedly, I said, accepting the coffee gratefully. In front of the French investors. And the Japanese ones? She laughed bright, genuine laughter that cut through 11 years of corporate oppression. You're my hero. My computer chimed. New email from NextCore Analytics. Ms. Blake, we're even more interested now. How does Monday look? Another from Madame Dubois. Ms. Blake, could we schedule a private discussion? We have concerns about Medix Data's leadership, but not about your framework. And a third, from an address I recognized, Thomas Kumar, our largest shareholder. Emergency board meeting scheduled for tomorrow, 10 a.m. Your attendance is requested. I sipped my coffee and watched the city through my window. Somewhere in this building. Caleb was frantically searching for bombs I hadn't planted. Gregory was probably screaming at lawyers. The board was circling like sharks who'd scented blood. And me, I was updating my LinkedIn profile. 11 years I'd been invisible. Turns out, all it took was a dancing spreadsheet to be seen. The emergency board meeting was held in the executive conference room, the same room where Caleb's career had imploded 24 hours earlier. I arrived at 9:55 a.m. to find the space already crackling with tension. Board members who usually participated via video had flown in overnight. That's when you know it's serious when millionaires give up their weekend golf. Thomas Kumar nodded as I entered. Ms. Blake, thank you for joining us. Gregory sat at his usual spot, but his throne looked more like a hot seat now. Caleb skulked beside him, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, but couldn't buy him dignity. Patricia from HR clutched a stack of documents. Morrison, the outside counsel, had apparently been promoted to Gregory's personal shadow. Let's cut to the chase. Kumar began once everyone was seated. We have a governance crisis. Our potential partners are questioning our leadership, our practices, and our integrity. Ms. Blake, we need to understand exactly what happened. I'd prepared for this moment, from my bag. I pulled out a bound presentation, not PowerPoint this time, but old-fashioned paper. Sometimes analog makes a stronger statement. This documents every instance of intellectual property appropriation over the past 6 weeks, I began, sliding copies across the table. Emails, timestamps, security footage, and file metadata. Everything is verified and cross-referenced. Board member Stephanie Walsh. Someone I'd only seen in annual reports flipped through the pages. This is extensive. Obsessive, Gregory muttered. Thorough, Kumar corrected. Continue, Ms. Blake. Page 12 shows the development timeline of the European Market Framework. 4 months of work, documented through our project management system. Page 18 shows when Mr. Winslow first requested access. Page 24 shows the email where he assured me it was for educational purposes only. Caleb shifted in his seat. I never explicitly said I would present it as my own. No, I agreed. You just removed my name from every slide, replaced it with yours, and told investors it represented your vision for the company. Totally different. A board member I didn't recognize her nameplate read Dr. Elizabeth Sterling looked up sharply. Mr. Winslow, is this accurate? Caleb glanced at his father, then at Morrison, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. I may have been overzealous in claiming credit. Overzealous, Dr. Sterling's voice could have frozen mercury. You committed fraud. That's a strong word, Gregory began. It's an accurate word, Kumar interrupted, which brings us to the larger issue. Caleb, what exactly are your qualifications for Director of Product Innovation? Silence. Your resume, please, Kumar pressed. What specific experience prepared you for this role? Caleb's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I have an MBA from a program your father donated a library to, Dr. Sterling noted. What about practical experience? Previous roles? Actual innovations you've personally developed? More silence. Morrison cleared his throat. My client prefers not to. Your client, Walsh interjected, is about to cost this company $30 million and potentially trigger an SEC investigation. He'll answer the questions. I watched Caleb crumble in real time. The golden boy who'd strutted through our offices calling us legacy blockers couldn't name a single qualification beyond his last name. Ms. Blake, Kumar turned to me. What would have happened if the correct presentation had been shown yesterday? Based on the investor's response to the framework itself, I estimate we had an 80% chance of securing at least partial funding. They were particularly interested in the predictive modeling for regulatory windows. And now, I met his gaze steadily. Now they're questioning whether Medic's data can be trusted with their money. Not because of the framework they've seen that now, and they're impressed, but because we nearly let someone present stolen work as original thought. You sabotaged the presentation, Gregory accused. You could have come to us. I did. I pulled out another document. Page 42, an email to you, Mr. Winslow, dated November 1st, expressing concerns about attribution. Your response, and I quote, Caleb is the future of this company. Support him or find another company. Gregory's face went ashen. He'd forgotten about that email. I also reported my concerns to HR, I continued, glancing at Patricia. The response was that I should be a team player and not make waves. Patricia found something fascinating to study on the table's surface. So I protected myself and the company the only way I could, I concluded, by ensuring the truth would come out before contracts were signed, not after. Doctor, Sterling leaned back. Mr. Winslow Gregory, how many other employees' work has your son claimed? That's under investigation, Morrison said quickly. Then investigate faster, Kumar ordered. I want a full audit, every presentation, every report, every piece of analysis Caleb has submitted. Ms. Blake, would you be willing to assist? Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I'll be in meetings next week, with NextCore Analytics. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. You're interviewing with competitors, Gregory sputtered. I've been contacted by 3 companies since yesterday, I corrected. Turns out, people who actually create innovative frameworks are in high demand. Who knew? You have a non-compete, Gregory started, which specifically excludes intellectual property I developed, Morrison interrupted, looking miserable. I reviewed it this morning. Ms. Blake's framework, being her creation, goes with her if she leaves. Then we'll sue. On what grounds? I asked pleasantly. For creating dancing spreadsheets, for documenting the truth, for refusing to let your son steal my work. Please, sue me. I'm sure the tech press would love that story. Kumar raised a hand for silence. Caleb, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out after this meeting. Dad, Caleb turned desperately to Gregory. Gregory, Kumar continued, the board will discuss your future separately. For now, you're on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Gregory's face cycled through rage, disbelief, and finally, defeat. This is because of her. This is because you put nepotism above competence, Dr. Sterling corrected. Because you created a culture where theft was rewarded and innovation was punished. Because you told Ms. Blake to support your son or find another company? Well, congratulations. She's taking your advice. Ms. Blake, Walsh addressed me. What would it take for you to stay? I'd thought about this moment, dreamed about it, really. The offer, the vindication, the chance to name my price. Nothing, I said simply. 11 years I've poured everything into this company. 11 years of watching my work walk out the door with someone else's name on it. The culture here is broken, and it starts at the top. Even with Gregory gone, that doesn't change overnight. We could make you Director of Product Innovation, Kumar offered. The role Caleb just vacated. You could, I agreed. But in 6 months, another Caleb would show up. Another golden child who thinks innovation means stealing from the people who actually do the work. And I'd be expected to train him, support him, watch him take credit again. No thank you. I stood, gathering my documents. The framework documentation is on the shared drive. My team knows how to maintain it. The investors have my direct contact if they need clarification. You're really leaving? Patricia asked, speaking for the first time. I gave this company 11 years of loyalty, I said, looking directly at her. What I got in return was a boss who told me to shut up and smile while his son robbed me blind. So yes, I'm leaving. But first, I'm taking the rest of the day off. Personal time. I've got 5 weeks accumulated. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Caleb. That paranoia you're feeling about hidden surprises in your other presentations, that's my gift to you. Enjoy looking over your shoulder for the rest of your career, however short it might be. As I left, I heard Kumar's voice. Now, let's discuss how we're going to explain this to the investors. But I was already gone, walking through the halls I'd traveled for 11 years, past the cubicles where I'd bled excellence into spreadsheets, beyond the conference rooms where my ideas had been repackaged and resold. Janet waited by the elevators with a banker's box. Figured you might need this. Inside were my personal items already packed, the photo of my sister, my coffee mug with the faded "World's Okayest Analyst" joke, 11 years compressed into a single box. How did you know? I asked. She grinned. Please, the whole building knows. Caleb getting perp-walked out of the boardroom, that's going to be legend. They're already calling it the Yakety Sax Massacre. I really laughed for the first time in months. Take care of yourself, Janet, and don't let them dim your light. Are you kidding I'm updating my resume tonight? If they can do it to you after 11 years, none of us are safe. The elevator arrived. I stepped in, box in arms, head high. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of security heading toward the boardroom, ready to escort out a former director of product innovation. 11 years ended with a ding and a dissent, but somewhere up there, dancing spreadsheets lived on in corporate memory, a warning to every future Caleb who thought innovation meant theft. And me, I had a Monday meeting with NextCore to prepare for. Time to innovate somewhere that actually knew what the word meant. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of interviews, negotiations, and watching Medix Data's stock price tumble like Caleb's dignity. The board tried damage control, but tech gossip travels at fiber optic speed. Dancing Spreadsheet Gate trended on FinTech Twitter. Someone leaked the security footage of Caleb's panicked exit. Memes were made. It was beautiful. I spent my days fielding calls from recruiters, and my evenings reading the increasingly desperate emails from Medix Data's board. They'd moved from threats to bargaining to outright begging. The French and Japanese investors had officially pulled out, taking their $30 million with them. Worse, 3 other major clients were reassessing their partnerships. Kumar called me personally on a Tuesday evening at 8:45 p.m. "Tessa, please, just hear me out." I put him on speaker while packing up my home office. "I'm listening." "We've completed the audit. Caleb appropriated work from 17 different employees over 6 weeks. You weren't even his primary target, just his most visible failure." 17, I repeated, and no one said anything. "They tried. Gregory buried every complaint. Patricia, well, she's gone too. Turned out she was getting kickbacks from the consulting firms Caleb kept hiring." I wasn't surprised. The rot always went deeper than it appeared. "We're cleaning house," Kumar continued. "New CEO, new head of HR, completely restructured reporting systems. The board authorized me to offer you—" "No, you haven't heard the number." "Kumar, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but Medix Data is done. You know it. I know it. The market knows it. You're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic." He sighed heavily. "We lose the European framework if you leave." "You lost it the moment you let Gregory treat innovation like a nepotism playground," I corrected. "I'm just taking my ball and going home." "Nextcore, right? They announced a new director of strategic analytics yesterday. Congratulations." "Thanks." I sealed another box of books. "How's Gregory handling unemployment?" "His lawyers are keeping him busy. Caleb's facing criminal charges for corporate fraud. Turns out the dancing spreadsheets were the least of his problems. He'd been selling client data to competitors." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "We found the evidence during the audit, emails, wire transfers, the works. He was too stupid to hide it properly. Gregory's claiming ignorance, but the FBI isn't buying it." The poetic justice was almost too perfect. I'd exposed Caleb as a thief, but he'd exposed himself as something worse, a traitor. "Good luck with the cleanup," I said finally. "Genuinely, there are good people at Medix Data who deserve better leadership." "Any advice?" Kumar sounded tired, older than his 60 years. "Stop promoting people based on who they know. Start promoting based on what they can do. And maybe check references next time someone claims to be an innovation expert." 3 days later, I walked into Nextcore Analytics for my first day. The contrast was stark. Where Medix Data had been all glass and ego, Nextcore was warm wood and earned confidence. My new boss, Dr. Sarah Okafor, met me at reception. "The famous Tessa Blake," she smiled, shaking my hand. "Or should I say, the inventor of the Yakety Sax massacre." I groaned. "That's following me." "Are you kidding? It's been required viewing for our board. Best example of intellectual property protection we've ever seen. Legal wants to frame your documentation." She led me through the offices, introducing me to teams who actually seemed happy to be there. No one flinched when executives walked by. Novel concept. "Your office," Sarah announced, opening a door to reveal a corner space with actual windows. "We've already loaded the European framework into our development environment. The team's excited to expand on your work." "My work," I repeated, still getting used to the acknowledgement. "Your work," she confirmed. "Which reminds me, we have a visitor." Madame Dubois stood by the window, elegant as ever. "Ms. Blake, I hope you don't mind the ambush." Madame Dubois. I couldn't hide my surprise. "I wanted to personally apologize for the drama at Medix Data, and to inform you that my firm would very much like to work with Nextcore on the European expansion, specifically with you." Sarah grinned. "Told you the framework would follow you here." "But more importantly," Dubois continued, "I wanted to thank you. Your actions exposed a culture of theft that went far beyond one presentation. We would have lost millions partnering with Medix Data. Instead, we have the opportunity to work with the actual innovator." She handed me an envelope, a small token of appreciation, and an invitation to present at our European Pharmaceutical Innovation Summit next month. Paid speaking engagement, of course. I opened the envelope. The speaking fee had more zeros than my old annual salary. Thank you. No, Ms. Blake, thank you. You reminded us that integrity matters more than titles, that innovation comes from those who do the work, not those who steal it. She smiled. Plus, the dancing spreadsheets were genuinely hilarious. My colleagues are still talking about it. After she left, Sarah showed me to the break room, where someone had installed a days since last dancing spreadsheet incident counter. It read 0. Traditional hazing, Sarah explained. You'll reset it when you create your first viral corporate justice moment here. Planning on having a lot of those? God, I hope not. We prefer to recognize talent before it has to defend itself with PowerPoint terrorism. That evening, I sat in my new office, my name actually on the door, and pulled up my email. Between the congratulations and LinkedIn requests, one message stood out. From Janet Williams, personal mail. Subject, you were right. Tessa. Left Medix Data today. Watching you stand up to them gave 12 of us the courage to do the same. We're calling ourselves the Legacy Blockers as a joke. John got hired at Microsoft. Powell's at Amazon. I start at Meta on Monday. Gregory's son posted bail but violated it by trying to flee to Dubai. They caught him at the airport with 4 hard drives of stolen data. The FBI says he's looking at 10 to 15 years. Gregory himself had a heart attack during the arrest. He's stable, but his lawyers say he's too ill to stand trial. Convenient. Medix Data stock is down 60%. They're talking about selling off the pieces. You didn't just save yourself. Tessa, you saved all of us from wasting more years in that toxic waste dump. The new guard says thanks. Janet. P.S. Someone made a TikTok of the dancing spreadsheets set to different songs. The Careless Whisper version is art. I leaned back in my chair, in my office, at a company that valued what I could create rather than whose son I wasn't. Outside, the city sparkled with possibility. My phone buzzed. Sarah had added me to a group chat. Innovation team, actual innovators only. The first message was a gif of dancing spreadsheets. The second was Sarah. Welcome home, Tessa. For the first time in 11 years, that's exactly what it felt like. Home, where innovation meant creation, not theft, where legacy meant foundation, not liability, where dancing spreadsheets were a cautionary tale, not a future necessity. I pulled up my framework, my name still prominently displayed on every page, and got to work. Real work, acknowledged work. My work? Caleb Winslow might be facing federal prison, but he'd taught me something valuable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. Sometimes it's forcing the world to see the truth, one dancing spreadsheet at a time. And if that truth happened to be set to Yakety Sax well, that was just good showmanship. 1 month later, I stood at the podium of the European Pharmaceutical Innovation Summit in Geneva. 500 industry leaders filled the auditorium, including several familiar faces from that fateful Medix Data meeting. The conference organizers had given me the keynote slot prime time, right after lunch when everyone was actually awake. Good afternoon, I began, clicking to my first slide. I'm Tessa Blake, Director of Strategic Analytics at Nextcore, but you might know me better as the woman who made spreadsheets dance. Laughter rippled through the audience. Madame Dubois smiled from the front row. Today, I want to talk about innovation. Real innovation. Not the kind you steal from someone else's hard drive, but the kind you build with your own hands, your own mind, your own 4 a.m. debugging sessions. Click, a slide showing Medix Data's stock price, a red line plummeting like Caleb's career prospects. 6 weeks ago, this company was valued at $2 billion. Today, it's being sold for parts. Not because their technology failed, not because the market shifted, but because they confused theft with innovation, nepotism with leadership, and tenure with obsolescence. I'd practiced this speech a dozen times, but standing here, telling my story to the people who mattered, felt surreal. The framework I developed, the one now powering Nextcore's European expansion, took 4 months to build. It took Caleb Winslow 4 minutes to steal it. But it took just 4 seconds of dancing spreadsheets to expose the truth. More laughter. Someone actually applauded. Here's what I learned: documentation isn't just bureaucracy, it's protection. Every timestamp, every email, every security log. They're not just data points, they're evidence of your worth, your contribution, your right to recognition. I clicked through slides showing the framework's evolution, the expansion potential, the deals NextCore had already secured using it, real innovation, properly attributed, adequately compensated. But more importantly, I learned that sometimes you have to make noise. For 11 years, I was quiet, professional, a team player, and for 11 years, I watched my work walk out the door with someone else's name on it. The audience was silent now, leaning in. It took dancing spreadsheets set to yakety sax to make people pay attention. Was it professional? No. Was it subtle? Definitely not. Was it effective? Well, Caleb Winslow is currently facing federal fraud charges, and I'm standing here, at my dream job, speaking to all of you. You tell me. The applause started slowly, then built to something thunderous. I waited for it to die down. Innovation isn't about age. It isn't about who your father is. It isn't about your MBA from a school your family donated a library to. It's about solving problems that matter, creating solutions that last, and having the courage to defend your work when someone tries to steal it. My final slide appeared a simple message in elegant font. Your work, your name, your credit. Accept nothing less. Thank you. The standing ovation caught me off guard. 500 people on their feet, applauding not just the presentation but the principle. Vindication felt even better than revenge. Afterward, at the reception, I was surrounded by executives wanting to discuss partnerships, collaborations, speaking engagements. My phone buzzed constantly, LinkedIn requests, interview offers, messages from other legacy employees sharing their own stories of theft and triumph. Dr. Okafor appeared at my elbow with champagne. So, how does it feel to be the face of intellectual property justice? Better than being a legacy blocker, I admitted. Speaking of which, she showed me her phone. A news alert. Medix data assets acquired by NextCore Analytics in fire sale. I nearly choked on my champagne. We bought them. We bought their client list and infrastructure for about what they paid Caleb's bail bond, she grinned. The board thought it was poetic justice. Plus, we're offering jobs to any employee who can prove their work was stolen. We're calling it the Legacy Blocker Rehabilitation Program. You're joking. Dead serious. Janet Williams starts Monday. She's bringing 6 others. I laughed, really laughed. The circle was complete. The company that had discarded us as obsolete was itself discarded, its valuable pieces salvaged by those who understood actual worth. Later, back in my hotel room, I opened my laptop to find an email. From Caleb Winslow, SEPA 7, redacted but calm, subject no subject. You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy. My father is dying and I'm going to prison because you couldn't just be a team player. Was your stupid framework worth ruining lives? I started to delete it, then stopped. Instead, I forwarded it to my lawyer with a note, evidence for the harassment file. Then I composed my own email. To all staff at NextCore Analytics, comes subject framework access and attribution. Team. As we integrate the new Medix data infrastructure, I wanted to clarify something important. Every framework, every analysis, every line of code we create here belongs to its creator. Your name goes on your work. Your innovations remain yours. We're building something special at NextCore, not just products, but a culture where innovation is rewarded, not stolen, where experience is valued, not discarded, where dancing spreadsheets are unnecessary because credit goes where it's due. Looking forward to building the future together. Tessa Blake, Director of Strategic Analytics. P.S. The days since last dancing spreadsheet incident counter remains at 34. Let's keep it that way. I closed my laptop and stood by the window, looking out at Geneva's lights, somewhere, Gregory Winslow was facing bankruptcy and legal battles. Caleb was learning that federal prison didn't care about his Armani suits. Medic's data was being carved up and sold to companies that actually understood innovation. And me, I was exactly where I belonged. Not because I'd made spreadsheets dance, but because I'd refused to let my work be stolen one more time. Because I'd chosen chaos over complicity. Because sometimes, the best way to build something new is to burn down what's broken. My phone buzzed. A text from Janet. Check TikTok. Someone set the dancing spreadsheets to Beethoven's Ninth. It's somehow even funnier. I smiled. Let them dance. Every view, every share, every meme was a reminder, your work, your name, your credit. Except nothing less. 6 months ago, I was invisible. Today, I was the woman who made spreadsheets dance. Tomorrow, I'd be the woman who helped build something better. And I wouldn't need a single dancing spreadsheet to do it. The revolution had been pixelated, set to saxophone, and absolutely worth it. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious, where are you tuning in from? Drop a comment below and let me know what country or city you're listening from. I love connecting with listeners from around the world. If you enjoyed this tale of corporate justice and dancing spreadsheets, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever experienced something similar in your workplace? How did you handle it? Let's discuss in the comments below.